Oops, I accidentally hit stop. I had to stitch this together with the other one. There is a Bible verse, maybe several even, but one of them, it's something like the church is the foundation of the truth or something like that. Like we should have the truth in all spiritual matters and all things that are most important. Obviously, we don't know the truth of everything. Like we don't know how to fix a car. That's not what the Bible is about, or something like that, or even like a lot of things dealing with science and physics and whatever. That's not, we're about spiritual matters, and just the truth of God and, the gospel, how to get to heaven, all that good stuff. So, we don't know everything, and we don't purport to know everything, but godly men should be, again, on the top of the line importance to be able to go after issues like these, because again, it's inherently spiritual. I just want to say too that I think we as Christians need to acknowledge that it's okay to not know everything, because I think that so many Christians are, again, they throw everything in the demon bin, that, oh yeah, it's all demonic and that's it, nothing else to talk about. Hey, how are the Packers doing? Just change the subject right away or something. I think we do a huge disservice to that. And just in general, like I complain about this all the time. Like, why aren't Christians taking this topic seriously? Why is it? Like, I feel like I'm the only one in my friend group, and by friend group, I'm not talking about people that would consider like friends that we talk all the time together. I mean, like on Facebook, I have a lot of evangelist buddies or whatever. Like I post this stuff on Facebook, for example, a lot, just to keep Christians updated with what's going on. And I think it's an important topic. I think it's extremely important just to be aware. Doesn't mean you have to follow the subject and listen to all the UAP videos that show up in your YouTube feed from your favorite, podcasts and such, like I do. And I have the luxury of spending a lot of time listening to different podcasts and things because of my job. I can listen to stuff for hours and hours every single day, but just be aware of what's going on. Take it seriously. It's a spiritual matter. And so many Christians, like, I don't know what it is. Like, are people do they still have this stigma where, or they think that there's a stigma around it? I mean, it's talked about in government, for goodness sakes. Like, our elected officials are talking about it openly. I mean, I bring this up all the time. Glenn Grothman, our congressman, like here in northeastern Wisconsin, he's my congressman. Out of like 500 and some congress people, he is like one of the guys. I know he's not the biggest name in UFOlogy, not like a Tim Burchett or Anna Paulina Luna, Eric Burleson or whatever, but he was the head chair at that 2023 hearing. The bombshell hearing with David Grush. Anybody remember that? It's like, I shout these things from the rooftop, especially as Christians, like, oh yeah, we got to vote for our priorities, it's always the same things, every election cycle, the same things all the time. And yeah, that's fine and all, but there are other things too that are important. But nevertheless, guy claims to be a Christian. I'm sure he is. And a lot of these other people that we vote for as Christians, we're all like, oh, we got to vote for this guy, got to vote for that guy. And look, he's also a Christian. Isn't that cool? And yet, like, they are the ones who are engaged with this topic head on, and we just want to shy away from it. This is our brother or our sister, Anna Paulina Luna, whatever, in the faith, and they're attacking this issue head on, and it's like, we're not going to pray for them? We're not even going to think about it? These are serious topics for all kinds of reasons, like not just the spiritual aspect of it, but, for the evil aspect of it, people being killed, people being harassed, whistleblowers being harassed, funds going to things that we don't know about, that they have a legal obligation to know about, talking about Congress, just, so many other things, technological wise. Like, wouldn't it be great if we have technology to travel from point A to point B super fast? Like, I'm so sick and tired of driving from Manitowoc to Appleton. That's an hour-long drive just to see my wife's family. 2 hours there and back again. Wouldn't it be great if we had something a little bit faster? I think it'd be pretty awesome. Now, does that mean that the technology to be able to do something like that, if we have cracked the code, reverse engineer it, whatever, is it cost effective? I'm sure it is, but maybe not so much to develop it, like to create the machinery behind it, whatever. Or can it be weaponized? And maybe that's the reason why they don't just want to invent fast-moving vehicles that can travel from, any point of the United States, or just any point in the world in maybe seconds or whatever. Maybe there's a reason behind it, but hey, we should at least know about it, right? But yeah, anyway, like, how is this not something that piques the interest of Christians? Just even on a general human level, like, forget Christianity, forget if you're a Christian or not. Why wouldn't that stuff be interesting? It's like, what's going on here? Just, I don't know. I laugh at it. Like, so I talk about this all the time on my like Facebook and stuff, and like nobody, like literally nobody ever engages unless it's a very rare time. If I say the right thing, like I'll say something like, oh, why are Christians so afraid to talk about this subject? I might get like one person then to finally come out of the shadows and say something. And, usually it's something I don't even really agree with. But I think Christians just don't want to acknowledge that this is an issue. And is it because we're afraid? And that's another reason that we should talk about this. For the church to have answers for ourselves. How do we go about this topic just for ourselves? Not even the world. Not even protecting the world from deception. But what about protecting ourselves from deception? Or, how do we just think through this stuff? Also, what if, again, like this technology, if it's reverse engineered, could benefit us, could benefit mankind. I mean, it is true that a lot of Christians were the fathers of different sciences or different things that benefited mankind, like the MRI machine or just different sciences, go through history, because this is the world that God created and we live in it. And we should be fascinated by it, fascinated with discovery. That's another reason, just fascinated with the rest of what God has created, how the universe works, right down to the atom, right down to all these different bizarre things you might hear about in physics. Like, discovery is important, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think there's even Bible verses pertaining to that. But, let's just say that this stuff really is demonic, or at least some aspects of it. Angels or demons, whatever. What if we have reverse engineered things like vehicles that maybe they are using to move around, and we gained incredible technologies from it? What if that's true? What do we do with that? We have to ask these hard questions. Like, do we say, like, oh, because demons use it, therefore we shouldn't use it? Now, that was something I was kind of wondering about, but I actually think it's okay because it's all part of God's creation. Maybe the devil just perverted it. It's like, I don't know, if a devil or a demon can influence somebody to use a gun or whatever to commit murder, does that make the gun evil? No. Or just like in general, like a person uses a gun to hurt somebody, does that make the gun evil? So we should therefore never have guns. No, that's same exact argument with this. Of course, it can be used for evil. Maybe demons or whatever knew how to. How things work, and that's why they create. I don't know. I have no idea. Again, we need all the information to process this. But me personally, and this we need to have these discussions. Like, I don't think it would be a bad thing or sinful to use technology that maybe we first discovered from a demonic entity, if it is a demonic entity. So yeah, lots of discussion around that. Another thing to discuss is, again, going kind of back to the occultish aspects of it. Like, this topic is also heavily revolving around consciousness. What is consciousness? And these beings, whatever they are, seem to communicate using consciousness, and there's a whole thing with that. And it's not just in the UFO world, but also like the telepathy tapes. I talked about this, I believe, before. How do we navigate those waters? This is becoming more and more of a bigger issue. And we as Christians need to have an answer on this and not sleep on it. I'm so sick and tired of sleeping on this topic, as you can tell. But, how do we, what's right, what's wrong? And I brought up before, like, the telepathy tapes, for example, non-speaking autistic people, how they can communicate with one another. telepathically and do other things that it's like crazy. You think it's crazy, but these are things that are reportedly happening. So what do we do with that? Is that something that is okay for us to do, or is it a grace that maybe God has given to people with limited abilities, so they're not stuck in their own bodies? Maybe it's just a grace for them, but the devil comes along and perverts it, and that's why they say they speak to dead relatives and things like that. So things that are very obvious red flags, right? But what do? Do we just say, oh, your child who is autistic and not able to speak is demon possessed because they go to a place called the Hill and talk to other people who are autistic? So we're just going to throw out the demon card right away. And yeah, imagine telling a parent that their autistic child is demon possessed or influenced by demons. Like, yeah, that's not going to go over well. So we need to have those discussions. How do we navigate that? And just the greater subject of consciousness as well. These are discussions I think we really need to have. I mean, this is probably where we're moving, into that world of discussion. And Christians are sleeping on it. Do we tell, how this is not the way to do it, but some people might have heard the wording or the adage of oh, you got to pray the gay away. Do you tell people to, pray the telepathy away of your autistic child that's stuck in their bodies? Do you tell them you need to remain stuck in your body? You can't have this communication with anybody. We want that gone because we're just going to say it's demonic right away. These are serious discussions that you need to approach with a lot of grace and a lot of love. What do we do with that? So yeah, some people might just say it's not real, it's all a sham. I'm not so sure about that. And by the way, I'm not saying I have the answers to all of these things. That's why I'm just saying we need to talk about it as Christians. And that's why this disclosure is important, because there are a lot of things involving consciousness, telepathy that have been researched. We all know about that. Maybe you're not familiar with that, but yeah, it's definitely a big thing in this world. The other thing too is that a lot of non-Christians believe that there's some kind of new age coming, and that this phenomenon is definitely related to it, and that consciousness is part of it, that we need to evolve, and there's this false glorification to it, not the real glorification that comes with belief in Christ and being born again and all that. And again, this is a perfect way to segue into the gospel. You start talking about this, the spiritual obviously is going to come up. Learn how to share the gospel. Watch some Living Waters, Ray Comfort. Go to my channel, Parade the Gospel, on YouTube. And, I have years worth of content on there. Granted, I haven't been uploading much lately, but you can watch an old video. It's just fine. It's just as if I uploaded yesterday. Started that in 2017. And just I don't know, how many videos? 300? I think it's 301 something. Yeah, so check that out if you want. But anyway, yeah, so the world has its own views, its own worldview on this, and that's why we as Christians need to set the table first before the world comes in and sets their own table. They believe their own worldview surrounding this topic. It's obviously not going to be Christ-centered. It's going to be all over the place, and usually the occult is involved. And yeah, we know what the Bible says about that for sure. Yeah, lots of deception in this world, and we as Christians, again, should be the first one on the scene to talk about it, first one to put out that fire. It's our responsibility, is it not? So I have to ask for your forgiveness if I'm all over the place. I might repeat a couple of things too, but I'm going to play actually some of what I recorded a couple days ago, and because I don't want to leave that on the floor, and include it in this video for discussion. But just some of these things I probably mentioned already. I just kind of picked a random spot. I'm listening to it for reminders of what I can talk about in this video. But how about I just play this video? And this is again just notes to myself of things to talk about and put into a better format, essay style thing at some point down the road. The potential to exist. Also the technological part, gotta talk about how we need to discern whether or not we should allow for that technology. If it is using pieces of God's creation that maybe Satan and his minions just perverted, there's that potential. But again, we just need more facts. We need more data. Is this something that evil men can be trusted with? Like, can you have gravity weapons that would rival, perhaps, nuclear bombs? So there's things like that to consider as well. Just the whole ethical part of a lot of this stuff. But how do we navigate that? But again, Christians need to set the table before the world gets to come up with a worldview, especially with what these things are, if they are deceptive in nature. We should be the first ones on the scene to clean up this mess, or to give the proper diagnosis of it, to analyze it, and give a biblical response. We shouldn't be allowing the world to come in first, because there's a lot of new agey stuff with this, especially with consciousness. That's a big part of it. What do we do with certain aspects of that? And I talk about the telepathy tapes all the time. It's not necessarily related to UFOs. It kind of is. They do mention it, but... Alright, I went ahead a little bit in the video and resuming here talking about summoning UFOs. This has been something kind of big. You have Stephen Greer. You have Jake Barber that's kind of into this. And yeah, a lot of people get an app where it teaches them how to do, what's it called, C5? Or is it CE5? I think it's called C5. I don't know, but summoning something. And yeah, I think we all know what the Bible would say about that. But yeah, here we go. But outside of that, summoning UFOs, that's a thing that's getting more traction. And that sounds kind of like something that the Bible would speak out against a lot in Scripture. So there's that. And of course, I have to acknowledge too that some of this, it could be multiple things. Some of it could be demonic. Some of it could just be angelic and not demonic or evil. Some of it could be U.S. technology. Maybe some of it is a classification that we have not classified yet. I don't know, but again, that's why we need more information and not just be left in the dark to come up with theories and speculation and things like that. That's why we need facts, just so we can know. And I think part of wanting disclosure is just to lead the charge for Christians, yes, guys, we can talk about this. It is an open thing to talk about, and you don't have to be weird about it. I think it's old now to say that there's still a stigma. The stigma is gone, but Christians are kind of left behind in the stigma world, thinking that there is a stigma. I brought up the point the other day, when people dress like the 90s or whatever, they dress a certain way, and you're like, oh, the 90s called, they want their, style back or whatever, just kind of joking around. But it's kind of with Christians, the stigma is over. I know you're trying to prop up this stigma, oh yeah, we're not supposed to talk about this, but that's over. Whatever time period, they want that back, because it's done with. So let's get over it. This is instinctively a spiritual matter. That's what I've been saying a lot. This is, you can't help for religion topics or spirituality to come up in discussions of this. And a lot of it, from what I research, a lot of this stuff, it's not going in the Christian direction. A lot of times it goes in the opposite direction. We can talk about how a lot of Christians in Congress are for this, or the ones kind of pushing it. There's the gospel sharing aspect of it, because it's such a spiritual topic, and that's always brought up. It's obviously a foot in the door discussion to share the gospel. Really simple. But then I kind of mentioned it somewhat, but just protecting the world from deception, and especially protecting Christians from deception. If, let's just say, I don't know, we have disclosure with a capital D, like Stephen Bassett likes to say. Our Christian pastors, because they never talked about demonology, which is also another point we can bring up, that we should be able to talk about that more, but the wiles of the devil, whatever. Our pastor's going to have to scramble the next Sunday to have something to say about it, or because they never studied it, they're not going to have anything to say, and a lot of Christians are going to drop like flies. because they're deceived. They think that, oh, this somehow contradicts the Bible. And that's another thing we need to talk about too. What if we find out that there is life on other planets or whatever? What do we do with that? I don't think that's what it is, but that's just one of the many different theories that there are for this thing that's going on. So, not all of this necessarily has to do with why we want disclosure, because these are things we can talk about even if we don't have disclosure. But, maybe I'll go back on that a little bit, because, again, if we had the information that they are from other planets, some of it at least, then, okay, we can talk about that. That's why we need disclosure, so we can know the facts before, again, I don't want to, speak out of assumption. Unless I clarify that it's an assumption or theory or whatever, but we should just have the facts so then we won't have to do that anymore, and we can go from there. It'd be so much easier. Also, expose the darkness and relevant verses. All right, well, thank you, Kirk, for sharing your thoughts on that. It's kind of weird hearing my own voice. Anyway, back to this, but yeah, something I could bring up again, the whole classification part. What if we do find out that some of this is, without question, from another star system? Is that going to wreck your faith? I think that's another point too. I think I brought up a long time ago. Whatever we discover about this, whatever it is, maybe multiple things, what's it going to do to your faith? What's it going to do to the average Christian who barely knows their Bible? What's it going to do to their faith? Again, this is why we need to talk about it. There's also another part too that, I think we just kind of lost curiosity. I think I kind of brought this up before, but just kind of lost curiosity with God's creation. We've seen it all, there's nothing more there, and we just don't care to discover more. I think that's to our fault. That's not a good thing. What's wrong with having a natural, intriguing, sensation about this? How is this not interesting? Just, boil it down to that. How is this not interesting to somebody? The intrigue of government cover-ups, and there's obviously something there. Just, what is it? That whole, how is that not interesting? I don't know. It's just so weird to me. It's so foreign. I don't get it. Let's see. There's the part about holding people accountable, our elected officials. That's insanely important because we know that a lot of them are lying to us. It's kind of cliche, but I'm kind of tired of it. Personally, tired of politics. I know to some extent it is important, but I'm tired of holding up, supposed our guy, and they can do no wrong. So I guess the obvious example would be if you're a Christian, you're probably going to vote for Trump. And those that do, then you have to basically not say anything bad. When our guy is in office, don't hold him accountable. But I've talked about this before. Trump is definitely not on the side of disclosure. At least he has not done anything to that yet. He claimed that he would be, which is a lie, and we need to hold him accountable to that. But it's also a dangerous lie. The whole drone situation. I'm still really upset about that. His response, that was a huge disgrace. And the rest of my circle of acquaintances, friends in the Christian community, whatever, who cares? He's doing good things. And yet, people high up in the military, I think I reported on this before, the guy on UAP, Unidentified Alien Podcast, he goes by his pseudo name, I can't remember now, Anthony Williams. He's like, oh, that's the scariest thing that he has ever heard, to have a response like that. And he kind of breaks it down, and I fully 100% agree. And I tried to share that information, why we should be concerned with that response, and nobody cares. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And then later on in the year, I think he was on some kind of a podcast or something, and somebody asked him about that, because nobody ever, and that, hold our media accountable too, but yeah, ever since then nobody has asked him about the whole drone thing. And look, right now we still have a situation, especially in Europe. But anyway, somebody asked him some podcast over the summer, and he let it slip. He's about to say that he doesn't have any control over that. People have analyzed that video and talked about that, but it was very interesting. But again, he doesn't want to tell us, and I think it says something about ourselves as humans and Christians, that we don't want to look into our own thoughts. Like, if it was Biden, let's just say it was Biden who said what he said, gave that response about the drones, about research and other purposes. I mean, that's like basically all they said. Don't want to tell us what. Even in the summer, months later, Trump didn't want to give a response and say what it was. He's like, "Oh, I know what it is, but I'm not going to tell you. They won't." I just can't say. I don't know how he said it, but he did backtrack, and he's about to say that it's not up to him, or that they won't let him. But imagine if the other team said that, like a Biden said that, or let's say Kamala Harris, if she got in. Wait a second, you have all these drones flying over our population, like over civilian households, for research? Can you not see how there's going to be like 1,000 conspiracy theories about that government, big brother government's like spying on us or whatever? And yet, absolutely freaking nothing, not a word from people. That first press conference, when that was announced, before questions were taken, not a single reporter asked about that. Like, what? That is crazy. Okay, so we have like the situation, hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of FBI involvement, law enforcement involvement, wasted because the FAA just forgot to tell them, essentially. Does anybody have a brain cell in that media room? How do you not follow up on that? And nobody has since, except for that podcast where they were able to ask him. He just kind of dismissed it right away. And then you would think everyone would be on that. Hey, did you hear that Trump is still being dismissive about the drone situation? It wasn't just New Jersey. I hate how it's labeled that, the New Jersey drones, because it was by far not just New Jersey. But you have hundreds of drones coming even from the ocean, following FBI agents home was also reported. Lots of instances where they were kind of acting anomalous, morphing into things, whatever. So many things were being said. And, just for research purposes, is FAA approved? Yeah. For research, civilians? Like, nobody, how do you not care? And, I remember bringing this up with another Christian buddy of mine. He was actually really big into conspiracy theories, to the point where it's actually a fault of his, because it gets pretty wild, some of the things he believes. But he's also a humongous Trump supporter. Try to bring it up with him about the drone situation, and showing him reports of reputable people talking about why what he said was absolutely insane, and why it's concerning for us as American citizens. These Christians should be great citizens and care about that sort of thing. And he just dismissed it completely. He's like, but Trump is doing good things over here. Like, he was totally blind, and that's a heart issue. And again, it's not just a political thing, really. I mean, it's just a heart issue that all men have. Whether you're talking about politics, sports, movies even, just whatever. Like, you're so blind to the truth. You don't have a heart for wanting to know what the truth is because you have such a strong bias or whatever it could be. So that's a problem. I mean, these are heart issues. When you get right down to it, this is heart issues that we need to work on just as people, but especially as Christians. You would think that we're the first people who should want to get that stuff down and be able to acknowledge it, to be honest about ourselves. So, I must have accidentally backed up here. I didn't realize that. But I'm still recording. been going on for a while, and I start to stitch this video to the other one. But yeah, those are just, I should probably just end it here, because I'm just rambling, and probably only one person is going to listen to this. But I really hope that people participate and give me some other reasons down below. And trust me, there are other reasons. I'm just not thinking of everything right now. I'm kind of scatterbrained. I'm also busy with other things. But I wanted to get my thoughts out there. So much is going on in the UAP world. So many things coming out every single day. Oh my goodness. Matthew Brown just had a live stream yesterday. There's some occultic stuff talked about there, by the way. You know, it's very important. From the guy that said that there is a God. This is his own personal opinion. He did mention that in that stream, like 7 hours. But yeah, a lot of occultic stuff. You guys gotta be careful. Jeremy Corbell just released what sounds like a bombshell episode on Weaponized. I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. Lakatsky gave an interview. Age of Disclosure is obviously coming up pretty soon. 3i Atlas news. Who knows what's going on with that? Just so much stuff, and it's even beyond that. Oh, Lou Elizondo. I wanted to report on this. I gotta find the original video though. But he was like super ecstatic about something going down behind the scenes in government. And other people are talking about that too. I think Eric Burleson kind of mentioned or hinted something like that too. I think it was him. I don't just so much stuff. I don't report on it that often. I just want to more focus on like disclosure aspect of it, why we should be for it. But I'll try to, I mean, again, guys, just follow the stuff that I follow. That's your news source. I'll try sometimes to report some of this breaking news. I originally wanted to be a hub for that, to be the, you know, guy who breaks it to Christians, maybe have a, you know, some biblical response to some of it. But right now, I just want to announce to the Christian community, hey, this is what's going on. Pay attention. That's mainly what I want to be about. And then also if there's anything that we can do for disclosure, which I need to make another video on that as well. But contact your congressman, contact your senator, contact whoever you can in government. I don't think it's going to come from government, but still, do your part. We as Christians need to have the facts, and that is extraordinarily important. I would even argue that it's biblical. You don't want to speak out of line on assumptions, okay? God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you next.